Hi, I'm Bob Alsop with ShopSabre CNC. Around here they call me Routerbob. Christmas is not very far off and we got a neat holiday product that actually started as a photograph. I'm going to show you how we brought that to life. Let's get started. The ISM Series represents our highest level of technology at ShopSabre, and of course they're part of our machine tool grade router group. Here's what that means. It means the base frames are structural steel, all welded, single piece. All the machining is done in a single setup on an aerospace mill. That's where you get so much accuracy and such great edge finishes. And of course we use that same technology when we fabricate the gantries. Ball screw technology is an important part of being a machine tool grade CNC router. Ball screws eliminate play, can handle heavy loads, and are virtually maintenance free. And that concept also carries over to precision contour guide rails, which also operate with ball bearings. Bottom line is you get better parts and better accuracy because of this technology. The ISM Series CNC routers come standard with the world's fastest dedicated machine controller, the Mitsubishi M80. One of the reasons the controller is so fast is because the internal communications are all handled with fiber optic. But you know, there's another part to machine control that has to do with the servos and the drive motors. The closed loops digital servos actually have glass encoders that supply 1 million counts per revolution. With that much data available and the speed of the control, you get really high performance on the machine and you get extreme part accuracy. But you know, we were able to accomplish all that and still maintain the ease of use machine control that we're famous for at ShopSabre. This machine features our optional 10-position carousel tool changer with HSK tool holders and the optional 13 horsepower HSD spindle. And we have a 9-spindle boring block that we'll be using in our demonstration today. The machine we're using today features our exclusive ShopSabre Super Z technology. Here's what that brings you. It starts out with balancing cylinders, which bring you faster 3D machining and faster drilling. It comes with our tool plate stiffener system, which really equates to better edge finishes and better accuracy. And finally, all of this is driven by a closed loop digital servo driving a ball screw. This machine features our exclusive ShopSabre high-flow vacuum technology. It starts out with a table that's totally machined on the machine itself, so it lines up perfectly with the spindle. And also, by the way, it's so accurate you don't really have to have a gasket between the table and the spool board. Now, the grid system that we developed to interact with the spool board itself has about 2/3 more flow than a typical universal table. So you're going to get more vacuum to hold your parts. Now, we connect that internally with hard pipes, and they're large hard pipes. In fact, there are 4 zones on this that you can control. Those hard pipes flow into a large frame component that becomes a vacuum plenum. And then to the back of the machine, we feed a 4-inch hard pipe. And on the end of that pipe, we connect brand name vacuum pumps. This machine features our optional part locator pins, which makes it easier for you to load and unload the machine. Now that we've talked about the machine, let's go in the office and let's actually look at the project that we're going to produce. This is a time of year when people start putting up holiday stuff. They put up Christmas lights and you see stores decorated. We also like to do some kind of Christmas project this time of year. So this year we've got something really neat and I think it's going to make a great video. We started with basically just a photograph of a Christmas tree display. So it's really a series of shelves that are in the form the shape of a Christmas tree. And all we had was a basic concept. And so we started from scratch and designed this. And I want to show you the steps that we did to accomplish this. And we basically did the design work with VCarve PRO, but I actually took those parts and created a model and ran just so you could see what the project's going to look like. Here's the final design, and it's basically a Christmas tree shape. And you can see what people do is they put all kinds of little things on here. In fact, you might have a little train going around here. So it really creates a great place to display your Christmas ornaments and things. And when you're done and it's decorated, it kind of looks like a Christmas tree. So let's take a look at how this thing's actually put together. This is a ghost view, so you can kind of see inside. Basically, it starts out with 2 pieces that form what I call the trunk. And they actually fit together. Here's what the other one looks like. And they have a notch, so there's a lap joint in the middle. That forms the tree trunk. And then these discs, there's 5 of them, actually installed from the top. They go down and they rest on these surfaces down here. So they get stacked, and that way it gives you the ability to assemble and disassemble it. So that's the idea, and then the top is flat, and so you can place something on there. So that's what we want to create. Now let's take a look at VCarve Pro, and I'm going to walk you through the steps of how I actually created this design. The project had to be made out of 3/4 inch 4x8 sheets of Baltic birch. And I selected Baltic birch because there's not any voids in it, so it's a really nice material. Now, I already decided that the disc was going to be 48 inches, so then the next thing to do is to actually figure out what the height's going to be. And let me show you how I did that. The job setup is single-sided. The material's 4x8. It's 3/4 thick, and we're touching off to the top of the spool board. Now we need to make some drawings. So let's start over here where we've got a little more space. Let's start with a line first, and it's going to be 47. So what I'll do is I'll just draw the line on there and then just size it. And I'll tell I want that to be 47. Now that represents the diameter of the base of the tree, or that bottom shelf that you see. So that's what starts. Now, the question becomes, how high is it going to be? Well, here's what I know. I know that the height's going to be from a midpoint, and we'll just select that. And then we'll resize it this way. And so we'll say, okay, I want to anchor it down here. All right, and now what size is it going to be? Well, right now it's 58. Well, let's calculate it. Okay, to get the golden ratio, basically the height has to be 1.618 times the base. Well, so we know the base is 47, so 47 times 1.618 equals, and that gives us our height. Now that's that magic proportion. That's that golden ratio, so now our tree should look great. Now, once we've got that done, now let's put some more lines on here. Let's connect that to that, and we'll do the same thing here. So that becomes a cross section of our tree. The base of our triangle is actually the surface of the bottom shelf. Let's put the top shelf in. So we'll snap to that point, we'll draw a horizontal line, and we'll move it. And I'm going to move it down 12 inches, so relative Y position minus 12. That gets it at the correct height, and then move it over, and then we'll trim it. So we'll get the scissor tool out. So that becomes the top surface of the top shelf, and this is the top surface of the bottom shelf. Once we know that spacing, we can figure out the other spacing. I'm going to show you a way to do this without calculation. It's real simple. You start out with a line, so we'll snap to right here. Draw it horizontal, doesn't matter the length. Same thing here. Then we'll draw a vertical line. Once again, it doesn't really matter where you put it. We'll trim that with a scissor tool. Select that line and use the array tool. We're going to do 5 columns 3 inches apart. Now we're going to create a diagonal from here to here, so let's do that. So draw a line, we'll snap it here, and we'll snap it there, and you notice some intersections form. Here's 1, 2, 3. That happens to represent the height of those shelves, and it's equal space. So snap to that, just go across it, same thing, and finally we'll do the third one. And then all we have to do is use the scissor tool to clean those up. And finally, let's get rid of this. Now we'll use the offset tool to actually create thickness. And so we'll see if that's Okay, that's correct. And that's correct. And that's correct. And that's correct. I believe this bottom one was drawn differently. That's correct, so perfect. Now we've got the actual thickness of these shelves. Now let's draw the ends on these shelves. So we'll go from there to there. Get a little closer. And then we'll join that. Same thing here. Join that. Same thing here. Join those. Same thing here. Join those. And finally, we'll do the bottom one. And finally, we'll join those. Select the shelves. This time let's right click, move to layer, new layer. And we're going to call this layer shelves. And we will make it red. With the overall shape of the tree defined and the shelves in their places, now we can get started on designing the trunk. Let's make a copy of our tree, so I'll select it, right click, copy, right click, paste, and then I'm going to select it and drag it over here. We'll actually work on this. Okay, let's take the scissor tool and let's get rid of half of this. So we'll get rid of those. Get rid of that. The reason is when we're designing the trunk, we really only have to worry about half of it because we can mirror it once we get it done. To make this clear, let's go ahead and put those back on that layer called shelves. Okay, so that's what we have to go with. Now what's going to happen is we're going to have to put these shelves on, the biggest one at the bottom. So let's do this first. Okay, so let's say, all right, I'm going to go from this start point at the midpoint straight down, and then we'll trim that. So that's how we'll determine where each one of those lines is. So that starts at the midpoint of that shelf, down to here. Same thing here as we'll just keep going down. And that determines our spacing. There's the midpoint. That looks great. Okay, let's go down here to the bottom. We need to add our base rail on here, and it's going to be about 3 inches. So let's just do this. Let's bring it out here, and then let's just move it down relative to where it is, -3. Okay. And then we're going to actually move it back 3. And then we'll finish our line. So then we'll bring this up. And we'll bring a line down here. And we'll just trim it. All right, there's enough information. Now we can start figuring out what this shelf's going to look like. So let's get the scissor tool out. Let's start clearing stuff off. So we know it's going to basically come up through here. Whoops. Now let's clean up some geometry, so we'll use this tool, and that'll allow us to extend these. So that's our basic shape, and this one we can clean out here. And we can clean this one out. These I'm not ready to clean out yet. Now, I think I want to change these shapes up here a little bit to give us more room. So I think what we'll do is we'll basically put some kind of curve back here. So the first thing is, let's do this. Let's take a line here, just a marker. I'm going to move that down 3 inches. -3, that's just a construction line. I'm going to do the same thing right here. Put another line in here. I'm going to move that down 3. Okay. All right, that looks pretty good. Now I think what I'll do is select that line, resize it, anchor this corner right here, and I'm going to make that X direction 3. I'm going to do that same thing here. And then we're going to just create a line straight down to here and straight down to here. Same thing. All right, now here's how I'm going to create this shape. I'm going to use a irregular curve. I'm going to go from diagonal to diagonal. All right, and if I hit the node editor, I get the handlebars. And let's bring those over to the midpoint here and to the midpoint here. That gives us a really nice curve. Let's do the same thing here. Irregular curve from here to here. Okay, we'll hit the node editor. We'll drag the handlebars out here to the mid. We snap to the midpoint. So let's bring this one down. There we go. Now that'll be very, very consistent. And then we just bring the scissor tool out and clean up what we don't need. So that's a really nice way to add a design to it and be consistent with it. Now once we know that, we can also get rid of these. And we'll get rid of that. Get it there closer. There we go. And let's add a line here. Now I want to add one more feature here, and that is, let's come over here where this is coming down, let's just bring a line down. And we'll trim that. And then we'll bring a line, let's just do it this way. Just snap to that corner, bring this line out. We'll move it, and we're going to move this up Y at 0.75. And we're going to trim that up, and I'll show you why. So we'll get the scissor tool out. We don't need that segment. We don't need that. We don't need that. Now here's why I did that. Basically that shelf sits right on here, and this basically lines up with the top of the shelf, and it gives us more clearance when the entire unit's assembled. And I'm going to do the same thing down here at the bottom. We're going to bring a line down. All we're doing is just getting a measurement here. All right, and then we want to bring a line up here that's going to represent the thickness of the material. So we'll just draw the line and move it up, the material thickness. So that's 0.75. And then we'll just clean it up. So we get the old scissor tool out, and we'll cut away what we don't need. I don't need that, I don't need that, I don't need that. And that should be it. So that's our basic shape. Okay, let's do a little housekeeping here. First, this tip is actually sticking up into a dado that's 3/8, so we need to move that up. Well, how do you do that? Well, let's hit the node editor, and then we'll just cut those. So we'll cut that vector here and here. Okay, and then we can select it, and we can move it up. So I'm going to move it up in Y 0.375. That takes care of the depth of the joint, and then we can use that extend tool to fix that. So that's this. Okay, so that fixes that. Now, there's another thing you have to consider, and that is you have panels here. You basically are going to end up with a round corner in here, so we're going to use a dog bone to take care of that. So this is where you find the dog bone fillet, 0.19, so I'm going to click that. Same thing here. Anywhere it's going to sit in a corner, make sure you cut some clearance. Now, this one actually sits right in here, not in there. Same thing here, right in here. Looks pretty good. Okay, so that's half of the shape for our pattern for the trunk. Now let's clean this up, make sure it's joined together. Okay, that looks great. Let's use the node editor to get rid of some lines we don't need. I don't need that. And let's go down here. I don't really need that. Let's got to pick the, there we go. And then we'll turn the node editor. Okay, now all I need is a mirror image of that, and I'll just say right and there, and then let's take those and let's join those together. Okay, perfect. Now I've got it. So there's the cross section of the trunk. Now let's see what we have to do to turn that into an actual part. Okay, now let's create a center line from here to there, and then we'll offset that center line 3/8 on both sides, 0.375 on both sides. And that's what we'll build our slot for the back to put these together. Let's do one more thing here. Let's take a line and draw a midline. So let's come across here till we hit the midpoint. There it is. We'll draw a line across. Whoops. We'll draw a line across there. Whoops. So undo that. We'll pick the mid. Okay, there's the midpoint. Let's go horizontal, and we'll trim that. Okay. Then we don't need that midline anymore. We'll get rid of that. Now what we'll do is we'll take this and we'll make a copy of it, and we'll paste it, and we'll move it over here. All right. Now what we'll do is we'll make our left and right parts. So let's get the old scissor tool out. Okay, there's a slot. Let's get in there close. There's a slot. So that becomes our lap joint, and we're going to need to put a dog bone in there. That's done. Let's make sure that's all snapped together. Okay, that's great. And over here, we do the same thing, except this time, come up here, get the dog bone out. Now there's our two parts for the trunk right there. All right, we've got enough information now to actually create our shelf. So let's do this. Let's take a shelf, let's right click it and say copy and paste it. And then we'll bring it over, we'll bring that over into this area right here. And we need to add a line to it. I need a center line. So let's zoom in there and let's snap to the midpoints of these ends. There's one, there's another, all right? Now we're gonna use that line to actually create the circle. So the center is going to be the midpoint of that center line I just created. There it is. Hold the mouse button down and we're gonna snap right to the end. All right, that creates a diameter. Looks like we got extra. All right, perfect. Now at this point, let's group those together so they're one unit. And now we're going to hold the shift key down and we're going to center that, and that allows us to transfer information down. And be sure and ungroup it. Okay, now I just need a couple lines, so let's pull. That corner would be the correct line. So we'll bring that down. That's that dimension, and same thing here. Okay, now once we have those, then we'll get the scissor tool out, trim all that up. Perfect. Now let's get rid of that. We don't really need that. Let's make sure this is grouped together. Join, yep, okay. Now the next thing I need to do, so that basically defines the length of this. Now let's take this and let's rotate it. First, let's copy it. So copy and paste. Then let's rotate that one 90 degrees. And then we can just clean it up with a scissor tool, and that's how you determine the cutouts. And of course, the final thing we would want to do is to put our dog bones in. So that's what that looks like. I'll show you one more thing. Let's do some housekeeping and get rid of that. There's one more thing that you'll probably want to do, I did on mine, and that is cut some clearance, because think about, there may be things that plug in on these shelves, so we need a way for wires to pass. So here's how I did it. I started first with a line off a corner here, and what I was looking for is 45 degrees. There it is. I don't care what length the line is. Then I'm going to take that line, I'm going to offset both sides of it a ½ inch. So that's 0.5. Okay, we'll close that. And then I actually want to create a line across from that intersection to that intersection. And we just get rid of these. These are construction lines. And then you can use your scissors to trim that out. And you do that on all four sides. So that's basically, you don't have to do that, but you're probably going to find out that that's the way to do it. Now, the procedure I just did on this, you do on each one of these others. The only thing at the top that you don't cut through, you cut 3/4 deep, because that sits on top of it. Now, we've got all our parts defined. The next step is to actually nest them. After I create all the parts, I put them into a single drawing so that I can nest them. Let's take a look at that. All right, there's the two trunk parts, and of course there's the shelves. Now, one thing that you want to know when you nest, if you have operations like holes and grooves, make sure that you group that together so that it treats it as one object. But all I really have to do is open up nesting. I'm going to cut this out with a 3/8 tool. I'm going to leave an extra 1/10 of an inch of clearance, and I'm going to let it nest to within 1/8 of an inch. It's okay to rotate, but only at 180 degrees because of grain. And all I really have to do is just select all these parts, tell them I want one of each, hit apply and hit preview, and it nests them. And it takes 3 sheets. So here's the first sheet, here's the second sheet, and there's the third sheet. Whoops, there we go. And there's the third sheet. So now, once I'm happy with that, all I have to do is tool path them, and now we're ready to go out to the shop and make our Christmas display. Well, our Christmas tree display came out really nice. It's amazing what you can do with a ShopSabre CNC router. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have any questions, you can contact us at shopsabre.com. Thank you for watching.